The black void of space stretched endlessly in all directions. Stars dotted the darkness like scattered diamonds on velvet cloth. In this quiet corner of the galaxy, a small ship drifted peacefully near an asteroid field. The vessel was painted white with blue markings, and its name was displayed proudly on the hull, Tygook's Pride. Inside the ship, Captain Hyan sat in his command chair, watching the view screen with interest. His crew of 4 worked around him at their stations. The bridge was small but comfortable, filled with the soft glow of computer displays and the gentle hum of machinery. "Myra, how are those scans coming along?" Hyan asked his navigation officer. Myra looked up from her console, brushing a strand of dark hair from her eyes. "Almost done, Captain. This asteroid field has some unusual mineral compositions. The science team back home will love this data." She smiled as she spoke, clearly excited about their discoveries. Engineer Day called out from his station. "Captain, the new shield generator is performing perfectly. I've been running tests all morning. The efficiency is even better than the simulations predicted." Hyan nodded with satisfaction. They had been out here for 6 months, mapping this unknown region of space. It was peaceful work, exactly what he enjoyed. No politics, no conflicts, just pure exploration and discovery. The Tygook's Pride was designed for exactly this kind of mission. She was fast, well protected, and packed with scientific equipment in the medical bay below. Soman was organizing her supplies and humming quietly to herself. June, their weapons specialist, was in the lower deck running maintenance checks on the defensive systems. Everything was routine. Everything was calm. It changed in an instant. "Captain," Myra's voice suddenly carried alarm. "I'm detecting multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They're surrounding us." Hyan sat up straight. "How many?" 47 contacts, sir. And they're big. Really big. 3 of them are massive, bigger than anything in our databases." Day quickly switched his displays to tactical mode. "Captain, these ships are powering up weapons. Their energy signatures are off the charts." Hyan felt his heart rate increase, but he kept his voice steady. "All hands, battle stations. But nobody fires unless I give the order. Myra, open all communication channels. Let's try to talk to them." The view screen changed to show the space around them. Hyan's breath caught in his throat. Dozens of alien warships had appeared from nowhere, forming a perfect sphere around Tygook's Pride. They were dark and angular, covered in weapon emplacements that glowed with menacing red light. The 3 largest ships were absolutely enormous, easily 100 times the size of his vessel. "Channel open, Captain," Mira reported quietly. Hyan stood and straightened his uniform. "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Hyan of the Human Federation exploration ship Tygook's Pride. We come in peace. We are a scientific expedition with no hostile intent. Please identify yourselves." For a long moment, there was only static. Then the view screen flickered and showed an alien face. The creature was reptilian in appearance, with dark scales and yellow eyes. It wore what appeared to be a military uniform decorated with medals and insignias. "Human vessel," the alien's voice came through the translator, cold and imperious. "You have entered territory claimed by the Vraxian Empire. I am Fleet Commander Thalrix of the 9th Battle Group. You will power down your engines and weapons immediately. You will prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with destruction." Hyan exchanged glances with his crew. Mira looked worried. Day's hands hovered over his controls, ready to react. "Commander Thalrix," Hyan replied carefully, "we had no knowledge of your claim to this territory. We are explorers, not invaders. If we've made a mistake, we apologize. We're happy to leave peacefully and avoid this area in the future." The alien commander's eyes narrowed. "Your ignorance is not our concern. You will comply immediately or face the consequences. Sir, Day whispered urgently, their weapons are fully charged now. All 47 ships have targeting locks on us. Hyan raised his hands in a peaceful gesture toward the view screen. Commander, please. This is unnecessary. We pose no threat to you or your empire. Give us a chance to withdraw peacefully. Thalrix leaned forward, his scaled face filling the screen. You misunderstand your position, human. The Vraxian Empire does not negotiate with those who trespass in our space. You have 10 seconds to comply, or we will open fire. The communication cut off abruptly. Captain? June's voice came over the intercom from below. I'm reading their weapon signatures. Should I bring our defensive systems to full power? Hyan's mind raced. They were outnumbered 47-1. These aliens clearly had no interest in peaceful discussion. But surely they could just leave. Surely this didn't have to turn violent. Day, prepare for emergency faster-than-light jump, Hyan ordered. We're getting out of here. Sir, they've created some kind of disruption field, Day reported, his fingers flying across his controls. I can't activate the FTL drive. They've trapped us here. Myra's console beeped urgently. Captain, one of their ships is powering up its main cannon. On the view screen, one of the Vraxian cruisers rotated to bring its forward weapons to bear. A bright red glow built up in the barrel of an enormous gun mounted on its prow. Shields to maximum. Hyan barked. Brace for impact. The Vraxian ship fired. A massive bolt of superheated plasma streaked across the darkness of space, moving faster than the eye could follow. It slammed into Taiguk's pride with tremendous force. The entire ship shuddered. Warning lights flashed on the bridge. Alarm klaxons blared for a moment before Myra silenced them. Damage report? Hyan called out. Day stared at his console in disbelief. Captain, shields holding at 98%. That barely registered as a hit. What? Hyan moved to Day's station and looked at the readouts himself. The engineer was right. The Vraxian plasma bolt, which looked devastating enough to crack a planet, had barely scratched their shields. Sir, Myra said quietly, I don't think they know how strong our defenses are. Earth built these shields to withstand radiation from neutron stars. We've never actually tested them against weapons, because we've never met anyone else out here. Hyan felt a cold realization settling in his stomach. Humanity had developed all its technology in isolation. They had no reference point for what was normal in the galaxy. They had built everything to what they thought were reasonable specifications. But what if reasonable for humans was extraordinary for everyone else? The communication channel suddenly opened again. Commander Thalrix appeared on screen, looking confused and angry. What kind of shielding is that? No matter. All ships open fire. Destroy that vessel. The space around Taiguk's pride suddenly erupted in violence. 47 Vraxian warships unleashed their full arsenals simultaneously. Thousands of plasma bolts, missiles, and energy beams converged on the small human ship from every direction. The darkness of space became a brilliant light show of destruction. Inside the bridge, the crew held onto their stations as the ship rocked from the impacts. But the damage readouts told an incredible story. Shields at 93%, Day reported, his voice filled with awe. Captain, they're barely hurting us. Hyan looked at the view screen, watching the enemy fleet pour everything they had at his ship. These aliens had tried to talk first, albeit aggressively. Then they had fired a warning shot. And now they were trying to kill his crew. He had tried peace. He had tried retreat. They had rejected both options, his hand clenched into a fist. June, he said into the intercom, his voice hard. Target their command ship's weapons only. Disable them. Minimal power. Fire when ready. Yes, sir? came June's reply. What happened next would change the galaxy forever. June sat at his weapons console in the lower deck, his hands moving across the controls with practiced precision. He had never fired at another living being before. The Taijuke's Pride was an explorer ship, and his job was usually to clear debris or take mineral samples from asteroids. But the weapons systems were the same ones used on every human ship, military or civilian. Standard equipment, nothing special. Or so he had always thought. He targeted the Vraxian flagship carefully. The computer identified the ship's main weapon batteries along its forward section. June set the power output to 10%, the minimum setting for the directed energy cannon. He wanted to disable, not destroy. His finger hovered over the firing button for just a moment. Then he pressed it. A beam of concentrated energy, thin as a pencil, shot out from Taijuke's Pride. It crossed the distance to the Vraxian flagship in less than a heartbeat. The beam struck the target with perfect accuracy, hitting exactly where June had aimed. The entire forward section of the massive Vraxian dreadnought simply vanished. One moment it was there, bristling with weapons and armor. The next moment it was gone, converted to superheated gas and scattered atoms. The beam had punched through their shields like they were made of paper. It had vaporized metal, weapons, and everything else in its path. Secondary explosions rippled through the Qiang flagship as its own ammunition cooked off from the heat. The enormous ship began to break apart, splitting down the middle like a cracked egg. Atmosphere vented into space in massive plumes. Escape pods began launching desperately from the dying vessel. On the bridge of the Vraxian command ship, Admiral Vector watched in absolute horror. His tactical officer stood frozen, mouth hanging open. The flagship Dominion's Fist was one of the most powerful warships in the entire Vraxian fleet. It had shields that could withstand sustained bombardment from a dozen enemy ships. Its armor was thick enough to resist any known weapon. A single shot from that tiny human vessel had destroyed it. Impossible, Vector whispered. His yellow eyes were wide with shock. The energy readings must be wrong. Check them again. The tactical officer's claws trembled as he worked his console. Admiral, the readings are correct. That ship fired a single directed energy weapon at a power output that shouldn't be possible for something that size. Our shields didn't even slow it down. Vector's shock rapidly transformed into rage. This was an insult to the Vraxian Empire. They were the conquerors of the galaxy. They had crushed hundreds of civilizations. No one defied them. No one defeated them. All ships. Vector roared into the communication system. Full weapons. Maximum power. Destroy that human ship now. Every surviving Vraxian warship in the battle group adjusted their targeting computers. Weapon capacitors charged to maximum capacity. Every gun, every missile launcher, every energy projector focused on the small white and blue ship floating. Calmly in the center of their formation, they fired as one. The amount of destructive force unleashed in that moment could have glassed an entire planet. Thousands upon thousands of weapons discharged simultaneously. The space around Taijuke's Pride became a solid wall of fire and energy. No sensors could see through the maelstrom. It was more firepower than had been used in entire wars. Inside the human ship, alarms beeped softly. Mira watched her console carefully, her hands steady despite the situation. Shields holding at 91%, Captain. The barrage is constant, but we're fine. Should I route more power to the defensive grid? Captain Hyan sat in his chair, staring at the tactical display. The readouts showed exactly what Myra had reported. 46 alien warships were pouring everything they had at his vessel, and his shields were barely noticing. The realization of what this meant was staggering. Humanity had been alone in the galaxy for its entire history. Every piece of technology had been developed from scratch, with no outside influence or reference. When Earth's engineers designed shields, they built them to handle the most extreme natural phenomena they could imagine: neutron star radiation, solar flares, asteroid impacts at relativistic speeds. They had no idea what normal shields were like in the rest of the galaxy. They had just built what seemed reasonable. And reasonable for humans was apparently godlike to everyone else. "Day," Hyan said quietly, "how much power are we using for shields?" The engineer checked his displays. "About 30% of auxiliary power, sir. The main reactor is still in standby mode. We haven't even activated it yet." Hyan closed his eyes for a moment. They were tanking the combined assault of 46 warships, using less than a third of their backup power. His little exploration vessel, designed for peaceful scientific research, was functionally invincible against what appeared to be the military might of an entire empire. "Captain," June's voice came over the intercom, tense and urgent. "What are my orders?" "They're not stopping. I can take out their weapon systems, but there are so many ships. At this range, with this many targets, I can't guarantee surgical precision. There will be casualties. Probably heavy casualties." Summon's voice joined the conversation from the medical bay. "Captain, I'm reading life signs on those ships. Thousands of them. If we start destroying vessels, we'll be killing all those people." Hyan opened his eyes and looked at the view screen. The Vraxian fleet continued its relentless bombardment. They weren't going to stop. They had made their choice. They saw his attempt at peaceful withdrawal as weakness. They saw his defensive shot as a challenge. Their culture, their empire, their entire way of thinking was built on domination through force. And he had tried everything else. "June," Hyan said, his voice heavy with the weight of command, "target their weapon systems. All ships. Disable them as precisely as you can. But if you can't be precise, do what you must. They chose this fight. We're ending it." "Understood, sir," June replied. In the weapons bay, June began working faster than he ever had in his life. His console lit up with targeting solutions. The computer identified weak points, weapons emplacements, shield generators. He started with the nearest ships, firing controlled bursts at minimal power. But minimal power for a human weapon was still devastating. The first cruiser he targeted took a hit to its main gun. The beam carved through the ship's armor and detonated the weapon's power core. Half the ship exploded in a brilliant fireball. June cursed and adjusted his aim for the next target, trying to be more careful. The second ship fared slightly better. His shot took out its weapons, but also vaporized its entire starboard side. The vessel spun away, venting atmosphere and debris. June realized the horrible truth. He couldn't be gentle enough. The power differential was too extreme. It was like trying to perform surgery with a sledgehammer. Every shot he fired, even at the lowest settings, was causing catastrophic damage. Mira routed more power to June's targeting computer, trying to give him every advantage. Day monitored the weapons systems, making micro-adjustments to improve accuracy. But there were so many targets, and they were all moving, all firing, all desperate to destroy the human ship that was slowly and methodically tearing them apart. A Vraxian destroyer exploded when June's shot hit too close to its reactor. Another cruiser went dark, its entire power grid destroyed. A smaller frigate simply broke in half when an energy beam severed it amidships. Escape pods launched from every dying ship, filling space with tiny life rafts. On the Vraxian command ship, Admiral Vector watched his battle group disintegrate before his eyes. Ship after ship was crippled or destroyed. The human vessel continued to sit there, shields still holding above 80%, methodically picking apart the Vraxian fleet with terrifying efficiency. Damage to the enemy ship? Vector demanded. None, sir, the tactical officer reported, his voice hollow. We haven't managed to damage them at all. Their shields are still at 87%. Vector felt something he had never experienced in his entire military career. Fear. Real, genuine fear. The Vraxian Empire had conquered through superior numbers and ruthless tactics. They had always been the biggest threat in any engagement. They had never faced an enemy that simply could not be harmed. 17 minutes had passed since the battle began. 35 Vraxian ships were destroyed or disabled. Thousands of his crew were dead. And that human ship was still barely scratched. For the first time in 3,000 years of Vraxian military history, an admiral made a decision that went against every instinct, every tradition, every law of the Empire. All ships, Vector said, his voice cracking slightly. Full retreat. Emergency faster than light jump. Now. The surviving 12 Vraxian vessels turned as one and fled. Their engines flared bright as they accelerated away from the battle. Within seconds, they vanished into faster-than-light travel, leaving behind only wreckage and escape pods. On the bridge of Taiguk's Pride, Captain Hyan watched them go. The sudden silence after the constant weapons fire was almost deafening. He looked around at his crew. Myra's face was pale. Day stared at his console in disbelief. From the intercom, he could hear Soman crying softly. June, Hyan said quietly. Stand down all weapons. Yes, sir, came the shaky reply. Hyan stood and walked to the view screen. Space was filled with debris. Twisted metal, frozen bodies, and hundreds of small escape pods drifting among the wreckage. So much death. So much destruction. And they had barely tried. Soman, he said, his voice gentle. Prepare the medical bay. Myra, begin rescue operations. We're bringing in survivors. All of them. The cargo bay of Taiguk's Pride had been transformed into a makeshift refugee center. What was usually storage space for scientific equipment now held nearly 3,000 Vraxian survivors. They sat in groups on the floor, wrapped in emergency thermal blankets, staring around them with expressions ranging from confusion to terror. Soman moved among them with her medical scanner, treating injuries as best she could. The device's artificial intelligence was working overtime, analyzing Vraxian biology and suggesting treatments. She had been working for 18 hours straight, surviving on stimulant pills and determination. This one has internal bleeding, she said to her assistant medical drone. The small floating robot immediately administered the appropriate coagulant, adjusted for Vraxian physiology. The wounded alien soldier groaned, but seemed to stabilize. Near the entrance to the cargo bay, 2 human security officers stood guard. They were not there to keep the Vraxians contained, but to protect them from each other. Fear and confusion had led to several fights among the survivors in the first few hours. Some wanted to attack their human rescuers. Others argued for cooperation. The tension was thick enough to cut. On the bridge, Mira was coordinating the last of the rescue operations. Captain, we've recovered the final escape pod. That's all of them. 3,217 survivors total. Hyan nodded, exhausted. Good work, Myra. Take us to a safe distance from the debris field and hold position. He rubbed his eyes, which were red from lack of sleep. Have we heard anything from the Vraxian ships that fled? No communications, sir. But Day has been monitoring their network traffic. They're definitely talking to someone, probably their high command. The messages are heavily encrypted. Down in engineering, Day was doing exactly that. His console displayed streams of data as he tried to make sense of the Vraxian communication protocols. Myra's right, he called up to the bridge. They're sending massive data packets to what I think is their capital world. Probably reports about what happened here. And based on the volume of traffic going back and forth, I'd say they're very interested in us. Hyan stood and stretched, his back aching from hours in the command chair. I need to speak with the Vraxian survivors. We need to figure out what to do with them. We can't keep 3,000 prisoners on a ship designed for 5 people. Captain, June's voice came over the intercom from the weapons bay. Permission to speak freely? Granted. Sir, we should have destroyed them all when we had the chance. We've shown them our capabilities. Now they'll go back to their empire with all this information, and they'll come back with a bigger fleet. We should have sent a message that attacking humans means total destruction. Hyan was quiet for a moment. Is that what you really think, June? That we should have killed everyone? There was a long pause. No, sir. I don't. But I'm worried about what comes next. So am I, Hyan admitted. But we are what we do, not what we say. If we had killed everyone, we would be the monsters they probably think we are. We made the right choice. Now we have to figure out how to make it count. Hyan made his way down to the cargo bay. As he entered, the Vraxian conversation stopped. Thousands of yellow eyes turned to look at him. The fear in the room was almost physical. These aliens had been taught their entire lives that the Vraxian Empire was invincible. They had been part of a conquering force that had never known defeat. And in 17 minutes, a single small ship had destroyed their entire worldview, along with most of their fleet. Soman walked over to him, looking exhausted. Captain, I've stabilized the critical cases. We've lost 47 of them despite our best efforts. The rest should survive. You've done incredible work, Soman. Thank you. Hyan looked out over the sea of aliens. I need to talk to them. Can the translator handle a broadcast? Already set up, sir. Soman handed him a small device. Hyan activated it, and his voice boomed out across the cargo bay, translated into the Vraxian language. I am Captain Hyan of Taijuk's Pride. You are all survivors of a battle that should never have happened. Your commanders attacked us without provocation. We defended ourselves. That defense resulted in terrible loss of life, and for that, I am truly sorry. A murmur ran through the crowd. One Vraxian, wearing the uniform of a mid-ranking officer, stood up. He was injured, one arm in a makeshift sling, but his bearing was proud. I am Kelthros, tactical officer of the destroyed cruiser Swift Vengeance. Why have you not killed us, human? We attacked you. We tried to destroy your ship. By the laws of the Vraxian Empire, we are now your slaves. Why do you treat us with mercy? Hyan looked at Kelthros directly. Because the battle is over. You are defeated and helpless. Killing or enslaving you now would be murder, not justice. That is not who we are. Kelthros stared at him in genuine confusion. I do not understand. You possess overwhelming power. You could do anything you wish with us. Why choose kindness? Because power without restraint is tyranny, Hyan replied. And tyranny always falls eventually. We don't want to conquer anyone, Kelthros. We just want to explore the galaxy in peace. Another Vraxian stood, this one younger and wearing a pilot's uniform. You destroyed 35 warships. You killed thousands of our people. You call that peace? Hyan met the young pilot's angry gaze without flinching. Your fleet surrounded us. Your commander demanded our surrender. When we tried to leave peacefully, you had already trapped us. You fired first, a warning shot to show your power. When that failed to destroy us, you opened fire with everything you had. We defended ourselves. What would you have done in our position? The young pilot had no answer for that. Hyan continued, his voice carrying to every corner of the cargo bay. Here is what is going to happen. We are going to take you to the edge of Vraxian space. We will repair enough of your damaged ships to carry you home safely. We will give you medical supplies and food for the journey. And then we are going to let you go." The cargo bay erupted in shocked conversation. Vraxians talked rapidly to each other, clearly unable to believe what they were hearing. Kelthros raised his voice above the noise. "And what do you want in return, Captain? What is the price for this mercy?" "I want you to deliver a message to your empire," Hyon said. "I want you to tell them that humanity offers peace. We have no desire for war or conquest. We will gladly share this galaxy with the Vraxian Empire and any other civilizations we meet. But if your empire chooses to send another fleet against us, they should understand something very important." Hyon paused, making sure everyone was listening. "The Taijuk's Pride is not a warship. It is a research vessel designed to study asteroids and nebulae. Our weapons are mining tools. Our shields are built to protect us from natural radiation and space debris. This ship was never meant for combat." He let that sink in for a moment. The Human Federation controls 300 worlds. Each world has its own defense fleet. Earth alone has 12 battle groups, and each group has ships that were actually designed to fight. If your empire forces us into a war, what you saw today will seem like a gentle warning." The cargo bay had gone completely silent. Every Vraxian was staring at Hyon with expressions of shock and dawning horror. The math was simple enough. If a human research ship could destroy an entire Vraxian battle group, what could an actual human warship do? Kelthros spoke again, his voice quieter now. "You could have killed us all and prevented us from taking this information back to the Empire." "Why didn't you?" "Because I want the Vraxian Empire to know exactly what they are dealing with," Hyon replied. "I want them to understand both our strength and our restraint. Let them make an informed choice about whether they want peace or war with humanity." Over the next 3 days, the crew of Taijuk's Pride worked alongside the Vraxian survivors to repair damaged ships. They led the effort, using the human ship's advanced fabrication equipment to create replacement parts. The Vraxians watched in amazement as components that would take their shipyards weeks to produce were manufactured in hours. Soman continued treating the injured, sharing medical knowledge with the Vraxian medics among the survivors. They were fascinated by the human medical AI and its ability to adapt treatments for alien biology. June helped restore the weapon systems on the Vraxian vessels, though he carefully noted that even the intact Vraxian weapons seemed primitive compared to what he was used to. He kept that observation to himself. Myra worked with Vraxian navigators to plot safe courses back to their space. She found them surprisingly professional once they got over their initial fear. They were soldiers doing their jobs, just like her. On the final day, as the repaired Vraxian ships prepared to depart, Kelthros requested a private meeting with Captain Hyon. They met in Hyon's small ready room. Just the two of them. "I wanted to thank you," Kelthros said, speaking carefully in his accented but improving human language. "You saved my life and the lives of my crew. You gave us back our honor by treating us as worthy opponents rather than conquered slaves." "You are worthy opponents," Hyon replied. "I just hope you will choose to be friends instead." Kelthros was quiet for a moment. "I will deliver your message to the High Command, Captain Hyon. I will tell them everything I have seen. The power of your ship, the skill of your crew, and most importantly, your mercy toward defeated enemies." He paused. "But I cannot promise they will listen. The Vraxian Empire has never known defeat. Some in the High Command may see your mercy as weakness. They may see this as a challenge that must be answered with overwhelming force." "Then I hope wiser heads prevail," Hyon said. "Because if they do come in force, we will defend ourselves. And next time, we might not be able to show the same restraint." Kelthros stood and gave a formal Vraxian salute, fist over heart. "You could have destroyed us all, Captain. Instead, you saved us. This Vraxian will not forget. I will speak for peace when the High Command debates what to do about humanity. Hyen returned the salute in the same style. That's all I can ask for, Kelthros. Safe journey home. As the Vraxian ships departed, Hyon watched them go from the bridge. Myra stood beside him. Do you think they will choose peace? I don't know, Hyon admitted. But we've given them every reason to. The rest is up to them. The throne room of Emperor Thaldric was a massive hall of polished black stone. Pillars carved with scenes of conquest rose to a vaulted ceiling far above. Banners from 100 defeated civilizations hung along the walls, trophies of 3,000 years of Vraxian domination. At the far end of the hall, elevated on a platform of steps, sat the throne itself. Carved from a single piece of dark crystal. Emperor Thaldric was old even by Vraxian standards. His scales had faded from their youthful green to a deep gray. But his yellow eyes were still sharp, and his presence still commanded absolute respect. Around him stood his war council, the most powerful military leaders in the Empire. Admiral Vector knelt before the throne, his head bowed low. He had been kneeling for nearly an hour, waiting for permission to speak. The other council members stood in a semicircle behind him, their faces unreadable. Rise, Admiral, the Emperor finally said, his voice deep and ancient. Vector stood on shaking legs. His shame was overwhelming. No Vraxian admiral had ever returned from battle with such catastrophic losses. Of the 47 ships under his command, only 12 had survived. More than 30,000 Vraxian soldiers were dead or missing. Tell me exactly what happened, Emperor Thaldric commanded. Vector took a deep breath and began his report. He spoke of detecting the unknown human vessel, of surrounding it with overwhelming force, of the human captain's attempts at peaceful communication, which Vector had interpreted as stalling tactics, of Fleet Commander Thalrix's decision to fire a warning shot. And then, the Emperor prompted. The human ship's shields absorbed our plasma bolt with minimal damage, Your Excellency. We did not understand what this meant at first. Commander Thalrix ordered a full barrage. The human vessel returned fire with a single shot. Vector's voice cracked slightly as he continued. The flagship Dominion's fist was destroyed instantly. The human weapon cut through our shields as if they did not exist. It vaporized the entire forward section of the dreadnought. Then the human began systematically destroying the rest of the battle group. Grand Marshal Krevix, the Emperor's chief military advisor, stepped forward. He was younger than most of the council, aggressive and ambitious. You claim a single small ship destroyed 35 Vraxian warships. This is absurd. You must have encountered a fleet, not a single vessel. I wish that were true, Marshal, Vector replied. But our sensor logs are clear. One ship. It never moved from its position. It simply sat there and tore us apart. High Strategist Myrael, the oldest member of the council, spoke up. Her voice was calm and analytical. What were the human ship's energy readings during the battle? Vector gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the throne room. It showed the recorded data from the battle. Numbers and graphs floated in the air, telling the story of the one-sided engagement. Myrael studied the data carefully. Fascinating. Their weapons operated at power levels that should require a ship 10 times that size. And their shields absorbed our entire battle group's combined firepower while operating at less than full capacity. She looked at the Emperor. Your Excellency, if these readings are accurate, the humans possess technology far beyond our own. The readings must be wrong, Krevix insisted. No civilization could possess such capabilities without us knowing about them. We have dominated this galaxy for 3 millennia. Actually, a new voice spoke up. The readings appear to be completely accurate. All eyes turned to the speaker. Kelthros stepped forward from where he had been waiting at the edge of the hall. He wore his damaged uniform with pride, his arm still in a sling from his injuries. Tactical Officer Kelthros of the Swift Vengeance, the Emperor acknowledged him. You survived the battle. Tell us what you witnessed. Kelthros bowed respectfully before speaking. Your Excellency, I was there. I saw everything Admiral Vector described. But there is more to the story. After they defeated us, after we fled, the humans did something unexpected. Go on, Thaldric commanded. They rescued us. All of us. Every survivor from every escape pod and damaged ship section. They brought us aboard their vessel and gave us medical treatment. Their doctor worked for days to save our wounded. They fed us. They treated us with respect. Kelthros paused. And then they repaired our damaged ships and let us go. The throne room erupted in shocked conversation. Council members talked rapidly to each other, clearly unable to believe what they were hearing. Krevix's voice rose above the others. This makes no sense. Why would they spare you? You could bring information about their capabilities back to the Empire. Because they wanted us to bring that information back, Kelthros replied. The human captain, a man named Hyan, gave me a message for the Empire. Emperor Thaldric leaned forward in his throne. Speak this message. Kelthros straightened, reciting the words exactly as he remembered them. Captain Hyan said that humanity offers peace to the Vraxian Empire. They have no desire for war or conquest. They wish to share the galaxy with us and any other civilizations they encounter. But he wanted the Empire to understand that the ship we faced was not a warship. It was a research vessel designed for scientific exploration. The room went silent. Kelthros continued. He said the Human Federation controls 300 worlds. Each has its own defense fleet. Earth alone has 12 battle groups with ships designed specifically for combat. He told me to deliver this message. If the Empire sends another fleet, we should send all of them, because if humanity is forced to defend itself again, they will not be using mining ships. Krevix slammed his fist on the table in front of him. This is clearly a bluff. They are trying to frighten us with exaggerated claims. We should mobilize the full Imperial Armada immediately and crush these humans before they can spread. And what if it is not a bluff? Myrael asked quietly. Then we would discover the truth when we engage them, Krevix shot back. Better to strike now, while we have the advantage of numbers. Do we have the advantage of numbers? Myrael moved to the holographic display and manipulated the data. Consider the facts. One human research ship destroyed 35 Vraxian warships without sustaining damage. If their military vessels are proportionally more powerful, and if they truly have hundreds of such ships, what would happen if we attacked in force? Krevix waved dismissively. We have 5,000 ships in the Imperial Armada. Surely that would be enough. Emperor Thaldric spoke, his voice cutting through the debate. How many ships did we lose in the conquest of the Talvex Communion? An aide quickly consulted records. 73 vessels over a 2-year campaign, Your Excellency. And how many worlds did the Talvex control? 30, Your Excellency. They were considered a significant military power. The Emperor stood slowly from his throne, his ancient bones creaking. He walked to the holographic display and studied the battle data. For a long time he was silent, and no one dared to speak. Finally, he turned to face his council. The Talvex had 30 worlds and cost us 73 ships over 2 years. These humans claim 300 worlds. If they possess even a fraction of the technological superiority demonstrated in this battle, what would an all-out war cost us? Krevix opened his mouth to respond, but Thaldric raised a hand to silence him. I have ruled this empire for 80 years, the Emperor continued. I have led us to conquer dozens of civilizations. I have never lost a war. Do you know why? No one answered. Because I know when to fight and when to talk, Thaldric said. The Vraxian Empire has endured for 3,000 years, not simply through military might, but through wisdom. We conquer those we can defeat. We negotiate with those we cannot. And we never, ever fight a war we might lose. Myrail nodded in agreement. A wise assessment, Your Excellency. But they destroyed our ships. Kravix protested. They humiliated our fleet. If we do not respond with force, we will appear weak. We will appear wise, Valdric corrected. Grand Marshal, answer me this. If we mobilize the full armada and attack human space, and if their claims about their military capabilities are true, what happens? Kravix was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quieter. Total defeat. The destruction of the Imperial Armada and the collapse of the Empire. Exactly, Valdric said. And if their claims are false, if they are bluffing as you suggest, then we can always attack later. But if we attack now, and they are telling the truth, there will be no later. The Empire will be finished. He turned to High Strategist Myrail. What is your recommendation? Myrail bowed. Send a diplomatic mission, Your Excellency. A single unarmed vessel carrying ambassadors. Not a battle group, not a show of force. A genuine attempt at communication. Let us discover what these humans truly want. If they accept our offer of talks, we learn more about them and buy time to assess the real threat. If they destroy our diplomatic ship, we have our answer and can respond accordingly. Kravix looked like he wanted to argue. But even he could see the wisdom in this approach. Emperor Valdric returned to his throne and sat heavily. It will be done. Myrail, you will lead the diplomatic mission personally. You will carry my offer of a non-aggression pact and trade negotiations. You will treat these humans with the respect due to a peer civilization. As you command, Your Excellency, Myrail bowed deeply. Valdric looked at Kelthros. You will accompany High Strategist Myrail as an advisor. You have met these humans face to face. Your insights will be valuable. It would be my honor, Your Excellency, Kelthros replied. The Emperor turned finally to Admiral Vector, who still stood rigidly at attention. Admiral, you acted according to standard protocol when you encountered an unknown vessel in claimed space. But your casualties were catastrophic. You are hereby relieved of command and placed on inactive status pending a full investigation. Vector bowed his head. I understand, Your Excellency. As the council meeting concluded and members began to file out, Emperor Valdric remained seated on his throne, staring at the holographic data from the battle. 3,000 years of conquest had taught him to recognize a superior force when he saw one. The humans had power. That much was clear. But more importantly, they had restraint. They had shown mercy when they could have shown cruelty. They had offered peace when they could have demanded submission. These were not the actions of mindless destroyers or aggressive conquerors. These were the actions of a mature civilization that understood the true nature of power. Valdric made his decision. The Vraxian Empire would talk with the humans. And if fortune smiled upon them, perhaps they would find friends instead of enemies among the stars. 6 months had passed since the battle in the frontier sector. Captain Hyan stood in the observation deck of the human diplomatic station Unity 7, watching the stars through the massive viewports. The station was a marvel of human engineering, a massive ring-shaped structure that served as humanity's primary meeting place for contact with other species, not that there had been many other species to meet. Until the Vraxian incident, humans had believed they were alone in the galaxy. Now they knew better. Myra walked up beside him, holding a data tablet. Captain, we just received confirmation. The Vraxian diplomatic vessel will arrive in approximately 3 hours. Hyan nodded slowly. After the battle, Taguk's pride had returned to human space and made a full report. The news had spread like wildfire through the Federation. First contact with an alien civilization. A battle with a conquering empire. Victory against impossible odds. The story had made Hyan and his crew famous, though he was not entirely comfortable with the attention. The Human Federation's response had been measured and careful. They had sent diplomatic messages to the coordinates Kelthros had provided. They had established this neutral station as a meeting point, and they had waited to see if the Vraxian Empire would choose peace or war. For 6 months there had been silence. And then, 3 days ago, a message had arrived. The Vraxian Empire requested a formal meeting to discuss terms of non-aggression and trade. They were sending High Strategist Myrail as their representative. How do you think this will go? Myra asked quietly. I honestly don't know, Hyan admitted. We offered them peace, but we also showed them our strength. That combination either makes them cautious allies or bitter enemies. There's no middle ground. Down in the station's engineering section, Day was running final checks on all systems. The station had been built quickly specifically for this meeting, and he wanted to make sure everything worked perfectly. No technical malfunctions to create diplomatic incidents. Soman was in the medical center, preparing to receive potential alien patients. She had spent the last 6 months studying Vraxian biology based on the scans she had taken during the rescue operations. She could now treat Vraxian injuries and illnesses almost as well as human ones. June was in the security office, coordinating with the station's defense team. He had argued strongly against allowing an alien vessel to approach the station, but his concerns had been overruled. Still, he made sure that every weapon system was online and ready, just in case. 3 hours later, the Vraxian diplomatic vessel appeared at the edge of the system. It was a sleek ship, smaller than a warship, but larger than a shuttle. Its hull was polished silver, instead of the dark military gray of the battle group ships. Most importantly, its weapons were clearly powered down, and its shields were barely active. It was making itself deliberately vulnerable as a sign of peaceful intent. Mira guided them in from the control center. Vraxian vessel, you are cleared for docking at Bay 7. Welcome to Unity 7 Station. The response came in accented but clear human language. Thank you, Unity 7. This is the diplomatic vessel Peaceful Approach. We are honored to be here. The ship docked smoothly, and a delegation of 6 Vraxians emerged. They were led by High Strategist Myrail, an elderly female Vraxian whose gray scales marked her age. Behind her came Kelthros, looking much healthier than the last time Hyan had seen him. The other 4 were diplomatic aides, and security personnel. Captain Hyan met them in the docking bay, along with Ambassador Chun Wei, a senior human diplomat who had been assigned to handle the negotiations. They had agreed that Hyan should be present because he had personal history with the Vraxians, but Chun Wei would do most of the actual talking. Myrail approached and gave the formal Vraxian salute. Captain Hyan, I have heard much about you. On behalf of Emperor Thaldric and the Vraxian Empire, I thank you for agreeing to meet with us. Hyan returned the salute. High Strategist Myrail, you and your people are welcome here. This is Ambassador Chun Wei, who will be representing the Human Federation in our discussions. Myrail turned to Chun Wei and bowed slightly. Ambassador, I hope we can find common ground today. As do I, High Strategist, Chun Wei replied. Please follow me to the conference room. We have much to discuss. The conference room was deliberately designed to be neutral and comfortable. The chairs could adjust to fit different body types. The temperature and lighting could be modified to suit different species. A large table dominated the center of the room, with human representatives on one side and Vraxian representatives on the other. For the next several hours, they talked. Ambassador Chun Wei presented humanity's position clearly. The Human Federation had no territorial claims beyond the systems they already occupied. They were willing to recognize Vraxion's sovereignty over their existing empire. They proposed a buffer zone in the frontier sector, where neither side would station military forces. They suggested cultural and scientific exchanges. They offered trade agreements. Myrail listened carefully to everything, occasionally conferring quietly with her aides. When Chun Wei finished his presentation, she nodded thoughtfully. "Your terms are generous, Ambassador," Myrail said. "Perhaps too generous. The Vraxian Empire attacked you first. We destroyed one of your ships in that warning shot. We attempted to conquer your crew. By all rights, you could demand reparations or territorial concessions." Chun Wei smiled slightly. "High Strategist, Captain Haiyun's vessel was not destroyed by your warning shot. In fact, it barely registered damage. And while your empire certainly attempted aggression, the results speak for themselves. We are in a position of strength, yes, but we gain nothing from humiliating you. We would rather have a strong neighbor as a friend than a weak neighbor as an enemy." Kelthros leaned forward. "Why do you want peace so badly? You could conquer the Vraxian Empire if you chose to. Your technological advantage is overwhelming." Haiyun spoke up for the first time. "Because conquest requires occupation. Occupation breeds resistance. Resistance leads to endless conflict. We have 300 worlds of our own to manage. Why would we want to add hundreds more, full of people who hate us? It makes no sense." Myrail studied Haiyun with her sharp yellow eyes. "You spared my people after defeating them. You repaired their ships and sent them home with supplies. This is not the action of a typical conqueror. What is humanity's philosophy regarding other civilizations?" "We believe the galaxy is big enough for everyone," Haiyun replied. "We believe that different civilizations can coexist and even help each other. We believe that diversity makes us all stronger. But we also believe in defending ourselves when attacked. The Vraxian Empire learned that lesson. We hope others won't need to learn it the hard way." Chun Wei brought the conversation back to specifics. "High Strategist, we understand that the Vraxian Empire has existed for 3,000 years. Your civilization has a rich history and culture. We would like to learn from you, and we hope you would like to learn from us. But this can only happen if we establish trust." Myrail was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into a pouch at her side and pulled out a data crystal. "Ambassador, Captain Haiyun, I am authorized by Emperor Thaldric himself to present you with this." She placed the crystal on the table between them. "This contains complete data on our battle with Taiguk's Pride. Every sensor reading, every tactical decision, every casualty report. We are giving you complete transparency about our military capabilities. This is a gesture of trust." Chun Wei looked surprised. "High Strategist, this is very generous. But why give us such sensitive information?" "Because," Myrail said, "you already demonstrated that you can destroy our ships easily. Keeping our capabilities secret from you serves no purpose. But sharing this information openly shows that we are committed to honesty in our dealings. We hope you will reciprocate." Haiyun glanced at Chun Wei, who nodded. "We will share equivalent data about Taiguk's Pride," Haiyun said. "But I should warn you, it might be disappointing. She really is just a research vessel. We weren't exaggerating about that." Kelthros spoke up. "Captain, we spent 3 days on your ship. We saw your medical technology, your fabrication equipment, your navigation systems. Everything was far beyond our capabilities. If that is just your civilian technology, we can only imagine what your military possesses." "Then let me be clear about something," Haiyun said seriously. "The technology gap between us is real. But it exists because humanity developed in isolation. We had no one to trade with, no one to learn from. We built everything ourselves, starting from basic principles. We didn't know what was normal, so we built what seemed reasonable to us." He paused, But here's what I want you to understand. That same isolation means we have no experience with galactic politics or warfare. We're not strategic geniuses. We're explorers and scientists who got into a fight we didn't want. You have 3,000 years of experience dealing with other civilizations. That knowledge is valuable. Perhaps more valuable than you realize. Myrail's eyes widened slightly as she understood what Hyan was suggesting. You want to learn from us. About diplomacy, about trade, about how to coexist with other species. Exactly, Chun-Wei confirmed. We have technology. You have wisdom. Those things together could benefit both our civilizations greatly. The negotiations continued for 3 more days. The details were complex, involving trade routes, technology sharing agreements, cultural exchange programs, and mutual defense pacts. But the foundation was simple. The Human Federation and the Vraxian Empire agreed to peace. On the final day, a formal treaty was signed. Myrail and Chun-Wei placed their marks on the document, witnessed by their respective staffs. The treaty established formal diplomatic relations, created a buffer zone in the frontier sector, and outlined terms for future cooperation. As the ceremony concluded, Myrail approached Hyan privately. Captain, may I speak with you alone for a moment? They walked to the observation deck, where Hyan had stood 6 days earlier, watching for the Vraxian ship to arrive. Myrail looked out at the stars silently for a while before speaking. Do you know what frightened the Emperor most about your ship? She asked. Our weapons? Hyan guessed. No, Myrail shook her head. Your mercy. The Vraxian Empire has conquered many civilizations. Some resisted and were destroyed. Others surrendered and were absorbed. But none ever showed us mercy after defeating us. You did. That single act changed everything. She turned to face him. The Emperor realized that a civilization capable of such power and such restraint was not one to fight. It was one to befriend. You could have made us fear you. Instead, you made us respect you. That is far more valuable. Hyan smiled. I'm glad the Emperor saw it that way. Not everyone in my government agreed with the decision to rescue your people. Some thought we should have destroyed the entire battle group. But you didn't, Myrail said. You chose compassion over cruelty. That choice has given both our civilizations a chance at something better than war. On behalf of the Vraxian Empire, thank you. She gave the formal salute one more time, and Hyan returned it. Later that evening, after the Vraxian delegation had departed, Hyan's crew gathered in a lounge on the station. Mira, Day, Soman, and June sat around a table, drinks in hand, reflecting on everything that had happened. So we're at peace, June said, still sounding a bit skeptical. Do you think it will last? I think we gave it the best chance possible, Hyan replied. We showed them we can defend ourselves, but we also showed them we prefer friendship to conquest. The rest is up to them. Soman raised her glass. To peace, then, and to second chances. They all raised their glasses and drank. Day looked at Hyan curiously. Captain, what happens to Taijuke's pride now? Are we going back to exploring? Hyan grinned. That's exactly what we're doing. We're scientists, not soldiers. Let the diplomats handle the talking. Let the military handle defense. We're going back to mapping asteroids and studying nebulae. That's what we do best. Myra laughed. Though I suspect anywhere we go now, people will be very polite to us. Let's hope so, Hyan agreed. The galaxy just got a lot more interesting. And we get to explore it all. Outside the station, in the vast darkness of space, ships from 2 civilizations passed each other peacefully. Human and Vraxian vessels, no longer enemies, but not yet quite friends, moving through the cosmos side by side. The Empire had panicked when an unknown human vessel annihilated an entire battle group. But that panic had transformed into something unexpected. Not conquest or submission, but mutual respect. Not war, but peace. Not enemies, but potential allies. And across the galaxy, other civilizations were beginning to hear the story of a small human research ship that defeated a conquering empire, of mercy shown to defeated enemies, of a new power in the galaxy that valued peace, but possessed unmatched strength. Humanity had announced itself to the galactic community, not through conquest, but through an act of proportional defense and unprecedented compassion. The message was clear to anyone listening. Humans would explore. Humans would trade. Humans would make friends. But humans would also defend themselves and others if necessary. And when humans defended themselves, the results would be swift and overwhelming. It was a message the galaxy would not forget.